introduction. So I get to tell the story of Vicki. Vicki, as you know, is a very accomplished speaker, has given lots of speeches, has held many offices, governor, director, even the new proposed, I can't remember what it was now. Well, no, it was ambassador. Yes, and not afraid to step into any of those things, but it wasn't always so. When Vicki first came, she stepped into the abyss and did topics. I was on counter. She had 15 right out of the gate, and I stopped keeping track because I didn't want to give her the exact number. And when I told her that she had at least 15 odds, her jaw dropped to the floor. She could not believe it. But this is where she's come from since then. Very good. And tonight, in a reflective mood, so let's find out what that is.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, this is a path. This is the leadership development path. And I have gone through it, and I've checked off everything I did. Now, the problem with being in 4 Toastmasters Club is keeping track of when you give speeches. When you're in 1 club, if you just keep the agendas, you know exactly when you spoke, what date, all of that good stuff. And in some of the agendas, they actually have you put down what project you're working on, and so you have this really great record of what you've done. But because I belong to 4 clubs, I take advantage of being able to speak at them. But then I got really confused as to where I was on this path. Because when you have a book, it's easy to see. But when it's on the computer, not so much. So then, I printed off this sheet that tells you everything that is required within the path. And so I would mark which club and date I gave those speeches. Because if Toastmasters ever comes knocking at my door, I should be able to say, here you go. I think it has to do with my background with the IRS. Always keep the material. So it's really interesting. This is my second path in Pathways. The other one was speaking. Because when we find out about Toastmasters, after we realize that it's not about making toast, and it's about public speaking, then we think it's a speaking club or a speaking organization. And that is why I joined Toastmasters, because I wanted to be a better speaker, a better communicator, and to feel comfortable. Because as Eric pointed out, I did not feel comfortable. Especially if it was somebody that I interpreted in a role as being in a different class than myself, whether it be an employer or a political person or a teacher. That's where I landed. And I joined Toastmasters. I learned how to speak. And then I found out there's something more. There's a tagline where leaders are made. I'm thinking to myself, what does that have to do with it? And in the legacy program, there were 2 paths as well, with lots of different manuals. And they had the speaking path, and they had the leadership path. And I was like, let me dive into this leadership path and see what it has. My first role was Vice President of Membership for this club, Cascade Speakeasy. And we met our goal so that we could get our award that year. And I was thinking, this is easy. I've got this. Then they asked me to be area director. And what area director does is they go and visit clubs within the area, and they get to meet with them, see what's going right, what needs to be improved, write up a report, and report it to the higher levels of the district. And I really enjoyed that because I got to visit clubs and I got to meet different Toastmasters and see that not every club is run like Cascades Speakeasy. I didn't know when I joined this club that I was joining a elite club. We have great membership. We have people that are engaged, willing to take on the roles. We always have a full slate of officers. We always fill in when people can't make the meeting, and we just make it work. Becoming a leader in the district, I found it very interesting that not all clubs were like this. There were clubs that had 8 members. It's really difficult to make that happen when you only have 8 members. Then there's other clubs that are flourishing. And you just look at them and say, what's going on and what's working and what's not working. So that was really interesting. Then Pathways came along. And I'll tell you a little secret. The reason I joined to be an ambassador is I wanted the sneak peek of everything. I wanted to know, okay, what's going to be happening? Well, Toastmasters International wasn't very good at getting their information out because I signed up at our fall conference in Wenatchee to be an ambassador. I believe that was 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So. And then I was like all excited. Okay, let me find out. And they're like, we're working on it. We're working on it. 2017 is when they started telling us, you can now start talking about it. Get your clubs excited. But we're not going to tell you what it's about, but get them excited. How do you get people excited about something that you have no clue about? It was just one of those things that, and we would talk about amongst ourselves as ambassadors. How are we going to convey this? And then they said, thank you, ambassadors. Your job is done. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't do anything. All I did was say it's coming, you know, like Paul Revere. The pathways are coming, the pathways are coming. Then they said, we need guides. I said, what's a guide? What's a pathway guide? Well, you will go to clubs and explain how Pathways works. Yes, this is what I wanted. I wanted the information to be able to learn it and then be able to help people. Again, Toastmasters was like, we'll tell you everything except what you need to know. It was a learning experience as it was rolling out in our district. As we would go visit clubs, once it came out, help them navigate how to get on the site. And I'm very fortunate that Lloyd has the time and the propensity to want to learn about these programs. And so between him and I was able to figure out certain things. And it was just really interesting for the teamwork of what you have to do in order to make Pathways work. Because only 3 people, but at least it's 3, can get into Pathways in order to say, yes, this person has accomplished this goal and go forth. But it doesn't talk to the program that then awards it to the club. And this computer program is just one that needs to be redesigned, and it may at one point. But so Lloyd and I would have interesting conversations about Pathways and how it works. And I'm still trying to figure it out, and it's one of those things. Going into Pathways now and completing the projects, I find that the very first 3 levels are very informative, content-driven, whereas the 4th and 5th level are more project-oriented, where you have to really dive into something. Some of them are you have to be a club officer for 6 months in order to give your report on how this worked, because it's more about doing the activity, learning about it, and then presenting to the club your findings. And I looked at the different projects in the leadership, And I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure, because I work for myself, so I don't manage a team. So how am I going to do that? Now, there is volunteer work, and I'm very fortunate to be one who enjoys volunteering, so I can use that in some of my projects. But I find it very interesting that those other two have now gone more into a direction that you can use at work and you can implement them, and so it ties that in more to what people are doing. And so, some of these are really interesting in the electives. And I made you these because the nice thing about pathways is there are 11 paths, but the projects cross over depending on what type of path you're on, if it's a speaking path or a leadership path. And so for this leadership path, I had to manage a successful event. And I always wonder, what do they consider successful? You know, everybody has their own terms as to how it's successful. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we'll see. But I was able to do that. Planning and implementing. And that is where you take a project and you have to plan it and you have to come up with these different things. And it was fun, but it wasn't just something that was really calling me. I love the leadership form in Toastmasters, but some of the projects I did not feel spoke to me, and that's just me. There's other people who will probably get really excited about building a social media presence. If you're the club officer, you could probably do public relations, you could probably do that based on your role, which is always a nice thing to be able to incorporate it, and so forth. Managing projects successfully, again, could they define successfully for me? Because I don't know. I mean, my idea of successful might not be their idea of successful. I enjoy both paths. I enjoy being part of District 9 leadership. I would not go higher than district leadership because I am amazed, even though this is a volunteer organization and everybody that works in Toastmasters are volunteers, how much the effort and time and money that they put into it. And for those of you who have served before and now and currently as club officers, area director or governor, all of those roles, I thank you because Toastmasters would not be what it is without the leadership program.